Good morning. In Tempest, we are now moving to Act 2, Scene 1. And if you see the board right behind me, you will see the focus is primarily on lines 1 to 186. And there are, the main points that we have to remember. I've put it up, but what you need to remember just to bridge Act 1, Scene 2 with Act 2, Scene 1 is we we found out that one of the survivors of the ship has already reached Prospero, and that is Ferdinand, that is the king's son. So in this scene, we have the next group from the shipwreck, which is Alonso, the King of Naples, Gonzalo, Sebastian, Antonio, and the two other lords, Adrian and Francisco, mentioned here. Right now, there's a lot of tomfoolery that goes on between Sebastian and Antonio. The brunt of it is faced by Gonzalo, because it's very apparent in this scene that Sebastian and Antonio are trying to, knowing that Gonzalo does have a lot of say in matters relating to the court of King of Naples, they always try to show him as a lesser person, making fun of him, trying to prove that he has no sense of humor. They pun on words, they make a mockery of what he says. But all through, Gonzalo maintains a kind of balance. He maintains a very different tone and very different approach in the scene from all the others. And from the very first, see, I'm not going to, in the beginning for these lines, I'm not going to read through the lines. What you need to know is they're very, very simple. You can read through and you'll understand. But what is important is as the scene opens, you will find that Gonzalo is giving a very bright picture of the island. He says that, yes, we have suffered our losses, but let us look at what we have gained. We are still alive, and there is hope. And Adrian mentions that he has seen Ferdinand being the first one who jumped from the vessel when it was sinking. So there is hope is not lost. We can still find Ferdinand. I'm sure he's on the island. And that's what he says, that we have, Gonzalo says that we have heard about so many journeys that have taken place across the seas, which have ended so tragically. But look at us. We have survived. We are here unscathed. Nothing, like Prospero told Miranda, not a thread is wet, the attire is as good as it was before, not a strand of hair has been harmed. So let's count on our blessings. Why should we be morose and unhappy? This is a beautiful island. This island has saved us. So you see, this entire concept about being hopeful is what drives Gonzalo. The same hope that we saw in Act 1, Scene 1. So you are actually tracing the character of Gonzalo as we move through. And now you see, you will have a lot of the puns here, which I'll take up separately later on. And there was one thing that Adrian says in these lines, that though this island seems to be a desert, uninhabitable and almost inaccessible, it must needs be of subtle, tender, and delicate temperance. So he says that though it appears, this is uninhabited, it is an island which is, we have just chanced upon it, yes, but it appears to be subtle, tender, and delicate. Now, subtle, tender, and delicate are very positive. So we have not been attacked by unknown animals. We have not been attacked by inhabitants of the island who, we have heard stories where there were natives of the island who have been wild and brutal. But nothing like that has happened. The air is mild. We have survived. So you see, even Adrian does bring a lot of positivity in the scene, right? But the focus of these lines, yes, definitely is Gonzalo keeps on bringing in the aspect that, see, we are as it were, in especially lines 55 to 60, he says that our garments being as they were drenched in the sea hold, notwithstanding their freshness and glosses being rather dew-eyed than stained with salt water. So he's saying that we are, nothing has perished. So let's look. He keeps on doing it. He keeps on um, trying to help Alonso, because for him the king is most important. So helping Alonso to see the brighter side of things, and that is uh, the focus here. And we also get to know that from these lines that they were coming back after the wedding of Claribel, that is Alonso's daughter, who got married in Tunis, right? So they had traveled all the way, and they were now coming back when they were hit by the tempest. And also Sebastian and Antonio, they do raise the point that if Claribel's wedding had not been arranged for such a far off place like Tunis, then probably this tragedy would not have happened. So you see, Sebastian and Tony are not helping the cause. They are the negative faces on the island, and that we have established from the very first scene, if you remember, the negativity that is there in Sebastian and Antonio. So they keep saying that if the wedding had not taken place, we would not have traveled so far. So somehow indirectly they're trying to put the blame on Alonso, that if you had not decided on such a marriage, we wouldn't have been on the ship, and then that we wouldn't have been in such dire straits. Yes, and you would not have lost both your children. I mean, so indirectly, Alonso's thoughts goes towards that. You cram these words into mine ears against the stomach of my sense. Yes, I mean, I stomach of my sense, I really don't want to accept the truth, but you're forcing these words. I mean, you're making me aware that what has happened, and you're putting the blame on me. Yes, if I had not married my daughter to Tunis, we would not have had the shipwreck, I would not have lost a son. So because of the marriage, he says, I've lost both my children. I've lost my daughter in marriage to Tunis, and Tunis is too far from Naples to even think about her visiting us. So assuming that she's lost from me forever, and I've lost Ferdinand because he's lost at sea. Yes, but like you said, Francisco, sorry, I mentioned Adrian. It was Francisco who says immediately that no, but I did later on, I did see him swimming. I saw him surging against the swell. He was desperately trying to keep himself afloat, and I'm sure he found something to keep himself afloat. He trod the water whose enmity he flung aside, and breasted the surge more swollen that met him his bold head above the contentious waves. So he did keep himself afloat. So that is very important. Even Francisco and Adrian are giving him hope, which Sebastian and Antonio are not. So as we move, now you see, because the discussion has moved towards Claribel and Ferdinand and the loss, and Sebastian and Antonio are not helping the cause. They keep saying that there are more widows now in Milan and Naples than there ever was earlier, and they give a reference to other voyages that have taken place. But Gonzalo immediately wants to divert the attention, because he's seeing how crude they are, how ungentle they are. So his focus moves on to the crux of these lines, which I've put up here, Gonzalo's concept of the Commonwealth, which I accept verges on fantasy. This cannot be true. But what you have to understand is he believes that this is the best way to divert the attention on the pain which Alonso is facing at this point in time. So, what is his idea of the Commonwealth? He said, if this island is so beautiful, and if I were a king here, what would I do? So, his idea of establishing a colony here on the island, what are the no's that he'll have? He'll have no trade. There'll be no commerce, there'll be no agriculture, there'll be no learning, there'll be no money, no property. So there's nothing that is going to cause uh, cause any dispute, nothing that people have to be forced to do. The people will have idle lives, they will relax, there'll be happiness, because this island is, like Adrian mentions earlier, is so gentle and refined. So because there'll be no money, there'll be no property, there'll be no commerce, so hence there'll be no theft. So we don't need the justice. There will be no ruler, there will be no hierarchy. You might say that his, like which Sebastian mentioned, the first part of his speech forgets the next part. That means in the beginning he says that there will be no ruler, and then later on he goes on to say it will be my commonwealth, it's my sovereignty. So that's fine, because see, Gonzalo honestly is not thinking about setting up kingdom here. For him, this is just to divert the attention of Alonso from the absolutely senseless truths that at this point in time was not needed, that Sebastian and Antonio are indulging in, right? So now if we look at the Commonwealth, his thoughts echo what? An Elizabethan period of harmony and growth. So what was happening in the Elizabethan period in England is what he's reflecting in what is going to happen in his Commonwealth. It will be a time of harmony and growth. The zenith of the Renaissance, that was the 16th century. Yes, you have done the period of Renaissance, and that zenith of Renaissance saw what? Where the individual was important, the humankind became important, the freedom of individual became supreme. Yes, there was no, the barriers of religion or barriers of a ruler was not there. So this was the time of freedom for every human being, and that is what is being reflected by Gonzalo here in his Commonwealth, which is on the island that he has come about. The golden age of peace and progress. So again, that thought is being reflected in his concept of the Commonwealth when he says there's going to be no trade, no agriculture, no commerce, no theft, no justice, no hierarchy. Everyone is one, everyone is equal, people love each other. Of course, and when you think of no learning, that goes against Renaissance, but his learning here means no formal forced learning. People will learn at their own pace. There'll be music, there'll be dance, there'll be everything, that the creative juices will be flowing within the people of this island. So the golden age of peace and progress. So now if I look at what's the main, what is Gonzalo talking here? The Gonzalo who amidst the desolation builds hope for his king. He wants his king to feel hopeful and not just think about the loss of Ferdinand. He wants to divert his attention. So when we are looking at his speech of the Commonwealth, that is the main focus, to divert his attention from the losses that he has suffered, right? And the losses that Sebastian and Antonio are highlighting time and again. And also we have to talk about what are the characteristics of Gonzalo that comes out very clearly. Very optimistic, very hopeful. See, the hope of Gonzalo that we saw in Act 1, Scene 1, when he talked about we can't drown because the bosun has a hanging mark upon him, the same hope continues. So that's an integral part of his character. It's utopian, yes. The kind of world that he wants to establish, the Commonwealth, is utopian. It's egalitarian. It's an ideal world. Probably cannot come upon, I mean, cannot really be true, cannot really be. But what is the intention, you should not forget. Don't sneer at what he's saying. Think of the intention. He wants to divert Alonso's attention from the thoughts of the loss of his son, and indirectly, because of Tunis being so far, the loss of his daughter as well. So the colonial spirit is there. That we cannot forget, because Shakespeare had to keep the entire colonial spirit during the time of the Elizabethan period. Voyages were taking place. I told you that in the very beginning. So new lands were being discovered. So probably that spirit is also being echoed by Gonzalo. Yet the underlying thought is hopeful and optimistic, creating a world to divert the attention of Alonso from the immediate tragic truths that perhaps Gonzalo believes and he's hopeful that may not be true. Ferdinand might still be alive, as it has been um, uh, mentioned by Francisco when he talks about seeing Ferdinand creeping himself afloat. And so the entire first section till line 186 is based on this hope. So probably all is not lost when the tempest has ruined the ship, because we, as the audience, we already know that Ferdinand is alive, and that's dramatic irony. The characters of the play don't know, but we know it. So definitely we can accept what Gonzalo says. There is hope, and when there is hope, all is not lost, right? So the first section of Act 2, Scene 1 for you. Bye for now.